Are you the reason everything feels tense, but no one tells you, what if your desire to help is making people avoid you? Could your love be pushing others away without you knowing? Maybe lately you've noticed that friends aren't calling as often, or when you offer to help, the response is colder than you're used to. Maybe a coworker hesitated before asking for your input, or a family member gave you a look, just for suggesting a better way to do something. It doesn't feel like a fight. There's no yelling, no confrontation, but there's tension. And if you're honest with yourself, it's been growing. Now, I want you to pause for a moment. This isn't about blaming you. You've always meant well. You care deeply. You notice things others don't. You want to make life smoother for everyone. That's part of your gift. But when that gift goes unchecked, when it becomes a reflex instead of a choice, it can create conflict in places you never meant to harm. That's what we need to talk about today, because you might be causing a very strong conflict and not even know it. This isn't obvious, it's not loud, but it's real. It's in the way people step back when you lean in. It's in the way conversations get shorter, the way invitations stop coming. And the worst part, it's not because you're a bad person. It's because your best qualities are being misunderstood. Your attention to detail, your desire to help, your instinct to improve, those things are powerful. But if they're not used with balance, they can feel like pressure, like judgment, like control. This message today isn't a criticism, it's a mirror, a gentle but firm reflection of something important. Because if you don't stop and look now, the people you care about most might start slipping away. Let's take this journey together slowly. Honestly, let's unpack what's really going on. And more importantly, let's figure out how you can hold on to what matters without having to change who you are, just how you use your power. I want you to understand that this doesn't mean you need to silence who you are. It means you may need to soften how your energy shows up. Think about this. Have you ever fixed something for someone and instead of feeling thankful, they got quiet or defensive? It's not that your help wasn't valuable, it's that it came before they were ready to receive it. Timing matters, intention matters, but so does perception. Sometimes we believe we're being generous by stepping in, by improving, by guiding. But from the other side, it can feel like pressure to perform, like being told that who they are or what they're doing isn't enough. And no one likes to feel like they're constantly under review, especially not from someone they care about. So ask yourself, are you truly helping? Or are you managing the discomfort that comes from witnessing someone else's chaos? That's a hard question, I know. But it's the kind of honesty that transforms relationships, especially for someone with a Virgo heart. Because a Virgo heart doesn't want to control, it wants peace. It wants order, it wants harmony, but sometimes, in pursuit of those things, you accidentally bring the opposite. And today, we begin the process of shifting that dynamic, not by dimming your light, but by learning when to shine it, and when to simply sit beside someone in the dark. You're not alone in this, and you're not broken. You're just at the beginning of a deeper kind of wisdom. Let's talk about something that hides in plain sight, something I call invisible pressure. It's not the kind of pressure that screams or slams doors. It doesn't raise voices or start arguments. No, this kind is quiet, polished, respectable. And for someone like you, it often feels like love. You care deeply. That's not in question. You notice things others miss. You spot inefficiencies, mistakes, and missed opportunities before most people even know there's a problem. That's a skill, a gift, even. But when it becomes a habit to fix, to point out, to intervene, it stops being helpful and starts being heavy. People may not say anything out loud, but they feel it. When you walk into a room, they straighten up a little. They hide the clutter. They brace themselves. Not because they fear you in a harsh way, but because they anticipate being corrected. Your energy, without meaning to, becomes the red pen in everyone's life. Let's take an example. Imagine your friend is telling you about a rough day. Maybe they forgot to pack their kid's lunch or missed an important email. What's your first instinct for many Virgo-minded people? It's to offer a system, a checklist, a suggestion that could prevent it next time. But here's the kicker: they weren't asking for a solution. They were asking to be heard. And what they got instead was an audit. Invisible pressure shows up when your love is translated as critique. It builds when every compliment has a correction attached. It grows when your help feels like an evaluation. And over time, even the people who love you the most start to close off. Not because they don't value you, but because they feel like they're never enough around you. This is especially true in work settings. Your team may stop bringing you ideas, not because you're unkind, but because your standards feel impossible to meet. Family members might hesitate to ask for help, fearing that accepting your support means accepting judgment. It's not your intention, but it is their experience. You've probably noticed the signs already. Conversations feel shorter, people change the topic when you enter, you're left out of group decisions or find out about plans after they've already been made. That's not coincidence. That's the ripple effect of invisible pressure. Now, I'm not here to tell you to stop caring or to lower your standards. That's not the solution. The world needs people who see what others miss. But the challenge for you is learning to ask, is this the time to help or the time to hold space? There's power in silence. There's love in letting someone fall and figure it out on their own. And there's strength in being the calm presence that doesn't fix, but simply stands beside. So today, begin to notice where your pressure might be leaking out without your awareness. Pause before you speak. Breathe before you offer advice. Ask yourself, is this about them or about my need to feel useful? Because when you shift from correcting to connecting, everything changes. And that invisible pressure, it begins to lift for everyone. Here's something else to consider. This invisible pressure doesn't just impact others, it affects you too. Carrying the weight of always needing things to be better is exhausting. When you're constantly scanning for what's wrong or what could be improved, you rarely rest in the present moment. You're always one step ahead, but also one breath behind. Over time, this mindset can lead to burnout, not just emotional, but relational burnout too. You might begin to feel lonely, misunderstood, or underappreciated. You may wonder why no one acknowledges your effort, your insight, or how much you care. But what if they can't see your care through the veil of your corrections? What if all they feel is the pressure and not the love? That's why awareness is the first step. Begin by watching your own patterns. Keep a small journal note how often you give feedback without being asked. Reflect on how many times a day you correct or refine something someone else did. This isn't about shame, it's about growth. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. And remember, not every problem is yours to solve. Sometimes, the most powerful form of love is allowing others the space to struggle, to grow, and to discover their own answers. Trust that they're capable even if their path looks different than the one you'd take. When you step back a little, something amazing happens. You create room for connection, for trust, for ease. And in that space, relationships deepen. People feel safer, more seen, and more willing to invite you back in, not as their fixer, but as their friend. This is where your gift becomes wisdom. This is how invisible pressure turns into visible presence. There's something about silence that speaks volumes. And in your world lately, there's been a lot of it. It's not the calm, peaceful kind of silence, it's the tense, cautious one. The kind where people choose their words carefully. The kind where laughter feels a little forced, and conversations seem to lose their rhythm the moment you walk into the room. This is what I call the silent revolt. It's not an argument. It's not a confrontation. It's a quiet pulling away. The kind that happens when people don't want to upset you, but also don't want to be around your energy. So, Instead of pushing back, they create space. They distance themselves in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. It starts small. Someone forgets to loop you in on a group text. A friend shares good news with others, but not with you. Your coworkers go out for lunch and you find out afterward. These aren't accidental oversights. They're signals. And while it's easy to brush them off, to tell yourself it's no big deal, deep down, you feel it, the shift, the change in dynamics, the growing gap between you and the people you care about. What's happening isn't rejection, it's resistance. And it's not because people don't love you. It's because being around you feels like work. Like they have to filter what they say, guard what they share, or brace for feedback. And while you may be offering insight with good intentions, it lands like a subtle critique, again and again. The real sting of a silent revolt is that it's hard to respond to. No one's yelling, no one's accusing, so you can't defend yourself. You're left in this uncomfortable limbo, feeling like something's wrong, but unable to name it. This is where things can unravel fast. You might start asking more questions, offering more help, trying harder to prove you care. But that only intensifies the pressure. The more you lean in, the more they lean out. Because the issue isn't your love, it's how that love is being received. So how do you shift this? It starts with recognition. Pay attention to the changes, the absences, the avoidance. And instead of reacting with frustration or over-explaining, take a breath. Ask yourself, when did I last truly listen without offering advice? When did I sit with someone's struggle without trying to fix it? The goal isn't to pull away or become passive. It's to become present in a different way. A way that invites people back in, instead of pushing them further out. Because when you recognize the silent revolt for what it is, a call for breathing room, you gain the power to change the atmosphere. Not through control, but through compassion. Not through fixing, but through feeling. This is how trust is rebuilt. This is how connection is restored. It might also help to reflect on a recent interaction where something felt off. Replay the moment in your mind, not to dwell or overanalyze, but to observe. Was there a subtle pause after you made a suggestion? Did someone glance at another person before answering you? These micro moments often carry the real message. Sometimes the silent revolt isn't about what you said, it's about how often you say it. It's the accumulation that wears people down. A dozen small corrections can weigh more heavily than one big one. And over time, even praise feels suspicious if it's always followed by a but. Think of it like a room with no windows. At first, it's fine. Then it starts to feel a little stuffy. Eventually, people just want to leave, not because the room is unsafe, but because it doesn't let them breathe. Your energy can be that room if you're not careful. The beauty of all this is that it can be reversed. Just as people slowly stepped back, they can slowly step back in if they feel safe, if they feel accepted, if they feel seen for who they are, not just what they can do better. So instead of asking what's wrong with them, consider what might be too much from you. That question, though hard to ask, is the doorway to healing. And the fact that you're still here, still listening, still open, that means something. It means you care enough to grow, and that changes everything. Let's talk about perfection for a moment. Not the glossy, magazine cover kind. I mean the perfection that lives quietly inside you, the part that whispers, "This could be better," a dozen times a day. The part that sees the crooked frame on the wall before noticing the beautiful picture it holds. For Virgo, perfection isn't a vanity thing. It's a language, a form of love. You clean, you fix, you optimize not because you're trying to show off, but because it brings you peace. Order feels safe. Improvement feels like care. And when you love someone, Your instinct is to share that sense of safety with them. But here's where the trap begins. What feels like care to you can feel like criticism to someone else. You see the potential. You offer suggestions. You show how things could be better. But after a while, the message that lands isn't, "I love you." It's, "You're not enough as you are." That's hard to hear, because it's not what you meant, but it's how it feels to them. And feelings have a way of becoming truth in relationships. The perfection trap doesn't just affect how you see the world. It affects how the world experiences you. You walk into a space and your eye immediately scans for improvement. You sit in a meeting and instinctively note what could be streamlined. You listen to a friend vent, and before they're done, your brain is already drafting solutions. There's nothing wrong with that impulse, it's part of your genius. But when it becomes your default response, it starts to wear down the people around you. Not because you're wrong, but because it feels relentless. Imagine being on the receiving end of constant improvement. Even if it's well-intentioned, it can start to feel like you're being constantly measured. And slowly, people stop sharing freely. They hesitate. They second-guess. Not because they don't trust you, but because they don't feel completely safe from your feedback. And then you wonder why people don't open up like they used to, why things feel more distant, why conversations feel shorter, less vulnerable. It's not rejection, it's protection. They're protecting themselves from the feeling of being less than. Now let's flip it. Think about the last time someone tried to correct you when you didn't ask for it. How did it feel? Maybe a little irritating. Maybe it shut you down. Now multiply that feeling over weeks, months, even years. That's the emotional math others are doing around you. So how do you step out of the perfection trap? You start by recognizing that not everything broken needs fixing. Not every mess is a problem. Sometimes people just need presence, not performance. And more importantly, you need to believe that love doesn't have to come wrapped in instructions. It can simply be imperfect, messy, human. The next time you feel the urge to correct, pause. Ask yourself, is this really about them, or is this about my discomfort with imperfection? That pause could be the difference between connection and distance. Because when your desire to help becomes a need to improve everything, it stops being love and starts being pressure. And no one thrives under pressure forever. This is your invitation to loosen the grip, to step back and let people be, to trust that sometimes good enough is actually more than enough. There's a moment, sometimes subtle, sometimes loud, when love starts to feel like criticism. You don't mean for it to happen, but it does. And when it does, the damage can be quiet and lasting. Let's say someone close to you comes home after a long day. They're drained. They just want to vent. They start sharing what happened, and before they can even finish, your brain has already assembled a list of ways to make things better next time. So you jump in with advice, a suggestion, maybe even a few bullet points. You didn't mean to dismiss them. You thought you were helping, but they go quiet. Their body tightens, their eyes drift away, and in that moment, they didn't feel heard. They felt fixed. That's the painful irony of love when it feels like criticism. The more you try to help, the more they feel inadequate. You see it as care, they experience it as correction. And over time, that pattern erodes closeness. Not because you don't love them, but because they stop feeling safe being real around you. Children feel it when their drawings are met with suggestions instead of celebration. Partners feel it when they open up, and the response is a checklist. Friends feel it when every story they tell gets turned into a teachable moment. Eventually, people stop coming to you with their struggles not because they've solved them, but because they'd rather carry them alone than feel small in your presence. This isn't to say you should never offer help. Of course not. Your wisdom is valuable, but timing matters. Consent matters. Emotional space matters. Sometimes people just want to be messy for a moment without being rearranged. Think of the last time you were vulnerable. Maybe you admitted something tough or talked about a fear. Now, imagine if the person you opened up to responded by dissecting everything and giving you a 5-step plan. You'd probably shut down too. Love means witnessing someone's humanity without needing to edit it. It means offering space before solutions. It means learning that your presence is often more healing than your advice. This is especially true in romantic relationships. Nothing kills intimacy faster than feeling like your partner is constantly evaluating your every move. Love shouldn't feel like a performance review. It should feel like home, like rest, like breath. So the next time someone shares something personal, try this instead of answering with advice. Respond with curiosity. Ask how they feel. Ask what they need. And if they want your help, they'll tell you. Because love isn't about always having the right answer. It's about creating a space where both of you feel safe being yourselves, flaws, fears, and all. This doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you someone who deeply wants to make things better. But the challenge is understanding that better isn't always about fixing. Sometimes, better is being still, letting the moment breathe, letting the other person just exist without having to improve, impress, or explain. It helps to remember that emotional safety is often built in silence, in those pauses where you could say something, but choose not to. In those moments where your instinct screams to improve the situation, but instead, you offer a hand, a nod, or just your quiet presence. When people feel truly seen, without feeling like they're under inspection, something magical happens. Walls come down, conversations deepen, real connection begins. So let that be your practice. Catch yourself in those moments where love is starting to sound like critique, and instead of reaching for the perfect phrase or the smart solution, just be there. Because when love is allowed to breathe without fixing, without evaluating, it becomes what it was always meant to be, a safe place to land. There comes a moment in every journey where something clicks, a realization that the way you've been moving through the world isn't working anymore. That moment is the turning point. And if you're here, still listening, still leaning in, then you're closer to that shift than you may realize. The truth is, change rarely begins with a dramatic event. Most of the time, it starts in quiet discomfort, a conversation that didn't land right, a look from someone you love that lingered a little too long, a moment where you noticed that your best efforts left someone feeling unseen, not supported. These small moments are your invitations, not to abandon who you are, but to refine how you show up. See, Virgo energy is inherently purposeful. You move with intention. You care deeply. You want things and people to reach their full potential. But the challenge is learning when that energy serves a situation and when it overwhelms it. This is where self-mastery begins. In learning that you can still be excellent without being exhausting. You can still be helpful without hovering. You can still hold high standards without making people feel small. Let's be honest, letting go of control isn't easy. It feels risky, like stepping into a world where things might not go the way they should. But what if the growth isn't in fixing outcomes, but in trusting people to handle their own? What if love is less about helping and more about holding space? This shift doesn't mean silence. It means intentional presence. It means listening not just to respond, but to understand. It means offering your wisdom when invited, not as an automatic response. And when the urge rises, because it will, to step in, to correct, to fine-tune, ask yourself, what would happen if I didn't? Would the moment fall apart? Or would it unfold, maybe not perfectly, but authentically? That's the essence of the turning point, trading perfection for connection. Trusting that your presence is enough. Believing that your love doesn't need to prove itself through performance. Here's a practice that can help. The next time you're in a conversation, try a 3-second pause before you speak. Just 3 seconds. In that space, Check in with your intention. Are you about to respond from habit or from heart? This simple act of pausing can change everything. It creates room for others to fully express themselves. It gives you clarity on whether your words are needed or if silence is more powerful. You may be surprised at how much more people open up when they feel you're truly listening, not planning your next line. And when you do speak, your words land with more impact because they're not layered in tension, they're anchored in care. This is what emotional maturity looks like. Not losing your voice, but using it more wisely. The turning point is not a single moment. It's a series of choices. Choosing to pause, choosing to observe, choosing to lead with curiosity instead of correction. And every time you choose presence over pressure, you're rewriting your story. One interaction at a time. It may feel unfamiliar at first, even uncomfortable, but over time, it becomes your new strength. A way of showing love that creates freedom, not friction, because that's what people remember in the end. Not what you fixed, but how you made them feel. So if you're ready to lead from that space, to evolve your impact, to deepen your connections, this is your moment. Right here, right now. Your turning point has already begun. If you need more encouragement, think about someone you've admired in your life, not for what they accomplished, but for how they made you feel. Chances are, they weren't constantly offering advice or pointing out what you could do better. They likely made you feel heard, understood, and accepted. Now ask yourself, how can you be that person for someone else? Start small. Maybe it's holding back a suggestion during dinner, or letting someone make a decision even if it's not the one you'd choose. Maybe it's telling someone you trust them instead of showing them how you would have done it. These aren't just gestures, they're transformational moments. Because when people feel empowered instead of directed, relationships grow. When people feel trusted instead of managed, they lean in closer. And that's the kind of bond you've always wanted, deep, mutual, and free of tension. This isn't about walking away from your Virgo nature. It's about elevating it, letting your wisdom become a quiet guide, not a loud correction, letting your love be an open hand, not a checklist. And in that shift, something beautiful happens. You grow, and so does everything around you. The final step in this journey is harmony. Not the kind that comes from everything going right, but the kind that grows when you learn to let things be. That's real peace. And for someone like you, who has spent a lifetime trying to perfect, organize, guide, this kind of peace might feel unfamiliar at first, but it is exactly what your soul is craving. Harmony doesn't mean giving up your values. It means applying them with wisdom. It means knowing when to lead and when to listen, when to offer and when to observe, when to step in and when to simply stand beside. And here's what most people don't tell you: your presence, just as it is, without fixing, without instructing, without correcting, it's already enough. The room gets calmer when you stop trying to control the energy. People open up when they know they won't be interrupted or redirected. Trust builds when others feel accepted, not edited. This is how you become the safe place, the person others want to call, the voice that brings reassurance, not pressure, the presence that feels like a gentle exhale. But harmony isn't passive. It takes practice. It takes self-awareness. It takes the strength to pause when your instinct says speak. It takes intention to shift your energy from doing to being. You can still inspire excellence without demanding it. You can still offer wisdom without insisting on it. You can still be a force of order without silencing someone else's chaos. One powerful way to anchor this new way of being is to ask before you act. Simple questions like, would you like my input? Or, how can I best support you right now? These questions aren't just polite, they're empowering. They create choice. They give people room to say yes or no. And that room is where true connection lives. And yes, there will be times when you slip, when the urge to correct rushes out before you catch it. That's okay. Progress is messy, growth is nonlinear, but the fact that you're even trying, that you care enough to notice that already makes a difference. Because the truth is, you're not here to perfect people. You're here to love them. You're not here to manage outcomes. You're here to share the experience. You're not here to be the answer to every problem. You're here to be a presence that makes people feel strong enough to find their own. And when you live from that space, everything shifts. People come closer. Relationships deepen. You find that life feels lighter, not because it's easier, but because you're no longer carrying more than you were meant to hold. So as we close this chapter, take a breath. You've done the hard part. You've looked in the mirror and stayed. You've chosen reflection over reaction, and that alone sets you apart. Now take what you've learned and bring it with you, into your relationships, into your work, into every moment where your presence makes a difference. Because you were never the problem. You were just using your power in a way that wasn't being received. But now, you're choosing to use it with grace. And that, Virgo, is the most beautiful kind of power there is. If you need a reminder along the way, write this down somewhere. You'll see it often. I am not here to be perfect. I am here to be present. Let that guide you when doubt creeps in. Let it anchor you when old habits whisper that you should be doing more, fixing more, saying more. Harmony isn't about silence, it's about balance. It's about creating space where everyone, including you, feels emotionally safe. It's where people don't just coexist, they truly connect. And those connections, that's where fulfillment lives. You've spent so much time being strong for others. Now it's time to let your softness lead too. Not weakness softness. There's power in quiet strength, in being the one who listens first, who accepts without agenda, who offers without expectation. You don't need to explain your worth. You don't need to prove your value. You already bring value just by showing up with love and awareness. The old version of you thought perfection was protection. But this new version, it knows that authenticity is liberation. So when in doubt, slow down. Take a breath. Remember that you're growing, that you're learning to show up differently, not because you were wrong before, but because you're becoming more whole now. This is harmony not as an outcome, but as a way of being, and you, Virgo, are more than ready for it.